Hi everyone, my name is Kaz and today I'm going to be reviewing The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is going to be a spoiler-free review, but if you have read the book and are interested in hearing my spoilery thoughts, I will leave a link in the description below to a live show that myself and my fellow book club hosts did on Pierre Ford's channel. Before I jump into my thoughts on this book, I wanted to let you guys know that I am hosting a giveaway for a UK hardcover edition of The Starless Sea that is signed by Erin Morgenstern. Thank you so much to Penguin Random House Australia for providing this copy here to give away to one of you guys. Now, I cannot afford international shipping right now, so this is only open to people who live in Australia, so I'm really sorry for all of you guys living internationally, but if you do live in Australia and would like to enter for a chance to win this beautiful, beautiful copy of The Starless Sea, then I'll leave a link in the description below to where you can enter. But now, it is time to talk about The Starless Sea. So, The Starless Sea is an underground labyrinth of stories, and we follow our main character Zachary Ezra Rawlins, who is a university student. He's studying gaming and stories within games, which is very, very cool, and he's exploring his university library one day when he comes across a really interesting book. The title of it is Sweet Sorrows, but there's no author name, and he's not really able to find any more information about this particular book, but he starts reading it, and it's filled with kind of a series of short stories. Some of them link to each other, but mostly these are kind of independent stories. And Zach is quite surprised to find that one of the stories is about him. He reads about a moment when he was young where he was presented with an opportunity that he didn't take. So he decides to try and find some answers, not only how part of his life has been recorded in a book that seems to be older than he is, but also where this book came from. Along the way, he uncovers these clues: a key, a bee, and a sword. And these will ultimately lead him to the Starless Sea. So the Starless Sea really is something else, and I was blown away from page one. When I started reading the book, I was sitting on the bus and I was kind of immediately transported, and not in just the sense that I was drawn into the story, but whilst reading this book, it was just so cozy and atmospheric. I felt like I was sitting at home by the fire, wrapped up in a cozy blanket and drinking a cup of hot cocoa. Like, I felt like I was being told a bedtime story. From the get-go, the reading experience for me was just so magical. And I think a lot of that does come down to the way that this book is structured as well. Not only the writing style, which is extremely evocative and really rich and colourful and hits all of your senses, but also the fact that, like, obviously the main story is about Zachary and his journey to the Starless Sea and what happens when he gets there. But his story is interspersed with kind of snippets from the book he finds, Sweet Sorrows, as well as some other books as well. I loved being able to see these short stories that were in themselves so whimsical. For me, it worked really well because the book itself isn't fast-paced or anything, so having these short details breaking up the main story didn't feel like it was kind of really jarring and taking me out of the flow of the story, because it is quite a slow and meandering novel. It's definitely not plot-driven. It is more focused kind of on the characters and the world, unraveling the mysteries of the Starless Sea. That being said, I do feel like the middle lagged a little bit. It just started to lose a bit of steam, though it did pick up again towards the end. But what I really appreciated was seeing how these shorter stories wove together. Now, I do understand that this book probably isn't for everybody, and this was my book club's book of the month for November. So at the end of it, it was really interesting to hear so many people's different thoughts and their reading experiences. And what I found was reading this with a logical mindset probably isn't the best way to approach it, and I feel like you probably won't get the most out of it. Reading it with that kind of mindset, but also expecting the book to be really logical as well. As I said, this book is really whimsical. It is really heavy with the symbolism and the metaphors, and a lot of the things come together later on in the novel. It's the kind of book that you just need to read and let it unravel its secrets for you when the time is right. And honestly, I really enjoyed this kind of reading experience. I loved just letting the story kind of wash over me and slowly sink in. And then as the pieces fell together, I was like, oh, it's making more and more sense, and I'm getting more and more invested in the story. The Starless Sea was just such an interesting and unique reading experience for me, and I loved every minute of it. The characters in this book were very interesting. Zachary is totally a Ravenclaw. He's just the kind of character who is really curious and open-minded, and I really enjoyed the fact that he was like a post-grad student and he's studying games. It's not something that's really heavily discussed throughout the novel. Like, obviously towards the start of the story where he is at university getting ready to go back to semester, we hear him talking about what he's studying exactly, and a lot of it comes down to storytelling in games. And then later on in the novel as well, there are a couple of moments where storytelling within games is kind of mentioned and related to what's happening in the book as well, so that was really interesting. We do also have a male-male romance in here, which I really enjoyed. The book doesn't heavily focus on the romance, though I do wish there was a little bit more development in that area before reaching kind of the crux of the story. It just kind of seemed to switch gears really fast, so I wanted to see more of that because I was really enjoying what I was seeing. My favorite character was definitely Kat. So Kat goes to uni with Zach and is probably the closest friend that he has. I just really, really loved her and what she contributed to the story. The book doesn't mention any specific labels, but I'm pretty sure that Kat has been in relationships with both men and women in the past as well. But honestly, she was just like a ray of sunshine. I loved her as a character. So I think that about wraps up my thoughts on The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Overall, I really, really enjoyed this one, and it's definitely a book that has kind of stuck with me as well since finishing reading it. I've given it about a 4.5 stars. Honestly, this could change in the future. It's the kind of book that I really, really want to reread, and not just once. Like, I feel like I will continue to get more and more out of the book the more that I reread it. So I'm really curious to see if my experience changes upon rereads as well. If and when I do get around to rereading The Starless Sea, I will certainly let you know. But that about wraps up this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and also thank you to Penguin Random House Australia for providing this gorgeous signed UK hardcover that I am giving away over on my blog. Again, link in the description. If you guys have also read The Starless Sea, I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, there have definitely been some mixed reviews. Discussions at my book club and for our live show were certainly interesting. Throughout the history of my book club, this is probably the book that got people most defensive, I guess. I feel like it's the book that people really loved or really hated with a passion and were willing to argue about it. So I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on it as well. But please, no spoilers if you can avoid it, or at least warn in your comments, or take a look at the spoilery live show video that we did on Piera's channel. Link in the description below, and share all of your spoilery thoughts there as well. But that is all that I have for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you very soon in a new one, but until then, I will talk to you in the comments. Bye!